600 active startups, lonely or confused, blew up, bad divorce with some co-founders, an accident. AI washing. I need to create a startup that is going to take advantage of where AI is going to be in 5 years.
Ed, thank you so much for joining the show. I'm really excited to have you here.
Happy to be here. Yeah, you bet.
And you know why I'm excited? Because you are very active in the ecosystem. But to be honest, I don't see you that often going to the offline events, in-person events, speaking on stage. That's why I'm really, really curious to know more about who you are, what you do. You work for many companies. You advise lots of companies. You started your own startups. So tell me more about your background and how did you end up in the startup space?
Well, I accidentally got into startups during .com 1.0. I was going to school in Florida, and this new technology called the internet and web pages started happening. And we started to work with clients and explore the technology. And like a typical university, it was a college dropout, the company started growing, and then we dropped out of school. I did. And then after, we were acquired, and that got us initial investment. It was a family office, and then we began our exposure to the broader startup ecosystem, and that's where I participated in .com 1.0. I think I did about a dozen startups and was flying back between Silicon Valley and Silicon Alley in New York. And after you get the bug, it just keeps going. Then .com 1.0 blew up, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. I had a lot of stock options with startups that were worth nothing, and you continue to reinvent yourself, and we continue to learn. I took a sort of circuitous path and then said, okay, after a while I can do another startup, and just basically became a serial startup founder. That's how I did it.
Amazing. That sounds good. Awesome. So now you're part of the startups.com. I mean, you're part of so many things.
Sure.
But one of the roles that you have is startups.com, and you are the chief strategy officer. So that's actually quite interesting, because lots of people know about startup grind, about plug and play, right? About Y Combinator, about even startup leadership program, right? So, but startup.com somehow is not on the radar on people who actually have come across before. So tell me more about the company and what do you do?
Yeah, one of the challenges that we've encountered is I think we've been the best kept secret in the startups ecosystem. Startups.com has been around for 14 years.
Wow.
And it really was just a passion project by the founder, Will Schroeder, who had built a unicorn, $700 million in revenue, exited, done multiple exits, raised money from Sand Hill Road, Sequoia, and he just wanted a place to talk to other founders, and was doing all these live meetings, and then slowly they began putting resources online, and we started off just as a community. I haven't been a part of Startups.com for that long. It's been about 3 years. So when I showed up, it was just at a really neat inflection point, and I was just wanting to participate. I had a really bad breakup, bad divorce with some co-founders, and I just began plugging myself in the community and began talking with Will Schroeder and the other founders of Startups.com, or the co-founders, and it just was a good match. So after a while, I started off just being a community leader, volunteering, doing office hours, commiserating with other founders, and then slowly I had my own ideas of what I wanted to see happen in the startup ecosystem. And with tremendous opportunity that they gave me a lot of leeway. So now, as a chief strategy officer, I handle the programming, the community, and really the systems that help as many founders as possible. Right now, we have about 600 active startups, and about 4,000 alumni. And the difference, probably the reason we're not as popular or well known, we sort of are a non-dilutive accelerator, so we don't take we don't take shares, we don't invest money, and we've helped raise about $750 million and gotten startups their start in the fundraising. It was one of the first platforms to do a Reg D, so online sort of crowdfunding, if you will, not a Reg CF, but a Reg D. And those companies have gone on to raise billions of dollars and billions of market cap, 13 IPOs, I believe. And I don't think startups.com has really been good at promoting themselves and saying, hey, we were part of this,
Right.
because the model isn't there. The incentives aren't there. I'm not trying to attract deal flow so we can continue to get more and invest more. And that's pretty much my day-to-day. So every day I run a cohort, I meet with founders, I connect other advisors, and then I look over pitch decks, outreach campaigns, and help founders raise money, do relationship building with investors. It's a non-stop. Startups are just changing all the time, and we just went through a real tough year, nuclear winter. But I'm all about how can we create resources to prop up our startups and help them reach their objectives, and also provide a community, just general life. We have founders that show up every single day just to check in, just to see their friends. I've met so many great friends. Pretty much my average day.
Awesome. Any specific regions that you focus on, or that the company focus on?
Well, that's the reason why I don't show up a lot at live events, because we try and service, I like to say, we try and service the 99% of companies that won't go to Y Combinator or get an A16Z or another swanky VC like that, or program. And on top of which, we like to service areas where there isn't a robust ecosystem. So startup founders are either lonely or confused. And what happens in smaller ecosystems, the advice is kind of terrible because nobody has an understanding of the broader ecosystem. So, my experience down in Silicon Valley, like I interviewed a Y Combinator one time, and I just understand that, and we have lots of founders that we learn from. So we are servicing founders in like the corners of North America and the world. I've got founders like everywhere, Singapore, Australia, you name it. And that's how we help them. And we just want to reach all of them. And so that's the reason virtual is the main reason we do it.
Awesome. But definitely you work with companies here in Calgary as well, right?
Not really. And that's the fascinating thing. And this is where I appreciate this relationship burgeoning. I've never really been invited to participate in the local ecosystem. I've definitely tried, and I've made my presence known. But I think that Calgary's got a unique identity, and certain people are going to fit that. But no, I've never really had a lot of opportunity to work with startups here. Also, a lot of them tend to be deep tech, oil and gas sort of backed, and that's just not my domain. And I try to stay in my lane is really what I'm talking about.
Right. Interesting. Well, thanks for sharing. And last question about startups.com. I'm just wondering, do you know how much did they pay for the domain?
The domain, yeah. It had to have been quite a bit. They didn't register the domain right up front. It was startups.co, and then they went and bought the domain, and that's one of the best kept secrets. We've got a great domain name.
Crazy. I think it costs like really a lot if you want to buy that now. Awesome. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit more about another thing that you are doing, and that's probably one of the passion project as well, which is your YouTube channel. And you talk a lot about startups. You talk a lot about specifically about pitch decks and how to craft them and how to go for a successful round of fundraising. So I have a couple of questions in that regard. So the first one, you have around I believe 6,000 subscribers over there.
Yep, just crossed that threshold.
And that's amazing. And if you tell that other people, they would be like, oh, this is like nothing, just 6K. But if you think about this is like in the startup space. If you go to the Y Combinator videos, they don't have hundreds of thousands of views as well. So like for us, people who are inside the ecosystem, we think it's huge, massive, but actually it's very, very niche. So that's what my point is, like 6K is actually a really good result. So what were your learnings of from building this channel? You've done it pretty much over a year.
Sure. That is a very fascinating story. It's probably the same story that a lot of creators go with. I just wanted a place to express myself and began experimenting. And so when you're meeting with founders all the time, you want to have ways to replicate yourself. And I never expected it to take off. And this was an accident. What ended up happening was I had one young founder, and he couldn't afford to be a part of startups.com. And I really wanted to help him out. Great kid. And so finally, he was asking me so many questions about his pitch deck that I said, listen, I will help you with the pitch deck, but you have to do something for me. Let me record it on video so I can show it to other founders. And that way I don't have to answer the same questions over and over again. Well, that one single video was the inflection point that made my channel take off. So even though all the growth has happened pretty much over the last year, it took me 3-4 years and 300 videos to figure out how to hit that niche. And once it took off and I started seeing the metrics and I started getting feedback, I realized there's a gap in the content space in terms of pitch decks. People were doing pitch deck roasts and sort of making fun of pitch decks, and there were VCs and popular people, and those were popular, but there wasn't anybody doing it for the pre-seed, first-time founder who just wasn't going to get any attention from the professionals out there. And I said, you know what? I'm going to treat everybody like they have a better than 0% chance with their pitch deck. And so, truthfully, most of the pitch decks that I review, they're never going to raise money. I'm sure they don't want to hear that, but they're not going to raise money. But the fact that I'm willing to talk to that audience really had my channel take off and allowed me to focus. And that's probably the biggest thing I learned is, who's your channel for? What do they want to hear? And let's go solve their problems with really great content. And based on that, watching your metrics and learning everything that's sort of taken off from there.
Amazing. And I read a few comments over there, and what people love about it, because it's always fun, it's up to the point, right? And you're just like cutting through the noise with those videos, which is really great. Well done. So I need to learn from you so I can also, take my channel to the next level. So the next question related to the channel is, since you talk a lot about how to build a startup pitch decks, so what are the top 5 mistakes usually founders make when they're crafting pitch deck?
Oh, top 5. This is good. This is a good question. Let me think. I would say the first major mistake that founders make is they don't understand an investor-founder fit. So they're pitching the wrong investor. You're pitching, if you're at pre-seed, you're pitching a seed investor. It's just a mismatch, and your pitch decks are going to look fundamentally different, what they need. That's the first mistake. A lot of founders think, well, every investor is going to be the same, and it's just not the same. They don't understand that every investor has an investment thesis that you have to match with your pitch deck. The second thing I would say is founders often talk to the customer. They don't talk to the investor. So you see these statements such as, you can now save 10% on this and that and make your life easier. Well, the investor doesn't think that way. They're going to be saying, no, I want you to tell me about the market. I want you to talk in terms of investment terms. And that's the second mistake. Third one I would say is they don't understand what's going through the investor's mind. So not only are they talking to the customer, they don't understand this is what the investor needs to see. And so a lot of founders think that an investor's going to sit down, and we make this joke all the time, is sit with your pitch deck by the fire, pour themselves a cup of coffee, start smoking a pipe, and read every slide and spend 20 minutes really thinking about it. They just don't understand. We don't have time. I was the general partner for a late stage fund in China, and I was general partner for a venture studio and an angel syndicate. So I don't have time I'm reading hundreds of pitch decks while I'm traveling. I'm just trying to squeeze them in. So I literally have 90 seconds to decide if I'm going to spend the next 3 minutes. I do not have 20 minutes to think about it. You're not going to be there as a founder to explain to me, no, this is what I really meant, and this is what I'm trying to explain. So a lot of founders don't understand, and therefore, I would say the last sets of mistakes have to go around clarity, being concise, so they're not concise, and it's not clear, and really it boils down to founders. You have to have a good startup to do a pitch deck, right? Worth pitching. And so if most of the time the startup is not fundable, and typically you'll have founders pitching a solution looking for a problem. So they've just built something that they think is cool with technology. They spent money in it. And they go, how can I get an investor to invest in it? Let's go find the problem that it solves. Where founders, if they took the time to research the problem first, their pitch decks would be so much better. So clarity and conciseness. And then the last one is just focused on the problem is what we're talking about. And those, I would say, are sort of the top 5 batch of mistakes.
Very helpful. Let's skip to the next one, which is big now, and everyone is talking about it. And this is the topic of AI. And here also I have a couple of questions for you. So first of all, working with founders, how do you see AI is reshaping startup world, right? So we see already lots of examples where really small teams of 3, 4, 5 people building unicorns, right? So the size is reshaping, but that impact other areas as well. So what's your observation?
Well, I guess there's 2 sides to the AI equation right now. And that is, one, how are founders using AI for their startups? Because if you're not incorporating AI, it's kind of like saying back in the day during .com 1.0, if you didn't mention the internet, which a lot of startups didn't, but if you didn't say this is our internet strategy, then no investor wants to invest in. So you have to be addressing AI right now. It is impossible not to. It's the same thing with then later on during .com 2.0, if you weren't introducing concepts or talking about integration of mobile and social, no investor want to talk to you. So you have to be incorporating AI in some form or another. And that's where founders have to stay ahead. And it's a really fascinating time where, yes, founders can now build startups with less people. Like, we have way less staff across all our ventures now, and AI is just, one of the tools, which allows us not to replace jobs, but allows us to get hyper productive and be a lot more efficient and have better outputs and compete out there. So that's the first thing. The second side of the equation is, okay, what startup can you do if you want to raise money or you want to build an AI-enabled startup? And here's the mistake. So I have the advantage of seeing all the pitches. At any point in time, I can throw a rock and hit 24 startups using AI to solve the same problem. And it's all the typical things, like we've got an AI wrapper over an LLM, and that is getting very saturated. Same thing happened with blockchain and crypto and NFTs. We're going to do blockchain everything, this and that. And it didn't really solve the problem in a unique way. And therefore now founders, anybody listening to this, thinking about it, they're now challenged to say, I need to create a startup that is going to take advantage of where AI is going to be in 5 years. Those are the ones that are now getting funded, but the ones that are just using current AI tools to solve the same thing, there's such a saturation, it's so competitive, and they're not getting funded.
Yeah, even though they put the name AI there.
Absolutely. AI washing. So there's like greenwashing, there's blockchain washing, and I see AI washing a mile away. And founders don't know this because it's a new hot space. Everything hasn't shaken out yet, and it's very exciting, but they don't know what they don't know, and they stay in their little bubble, and they think they're doing something innovative, but they're really not.
Right. Awesome. All right, so this is just the tool, which is extremely helpful, but it should be used in the right way.
100%.
Awesome. So how do you incorporate AI into your work? Because you do consulting, you do mentorship. What's your take on it?
We're building AI agents for everything.
Tell me more.
Pretty much anytime I hit something that there can be a standard operating procedure, so it's an SOP that requires more than 3 steps, I've done it more than 3 times, and involves more than 3 people, I try and create an AI agent. And you can do that. You have to be thinking, there's a difference between we have AI for that and we have your AI for that. Today, we can take any process and start chunking away at it with AI to make it more efficient. So I've done an AI agent for everything from answering basic questions, processing pitch decks, feedback, creating problem statements, taking someone's mess of an executive summary and saying, okay, we're going to boil it down, finding data, analyzing markets. Whereas before we'd have to do that all manually as consultants. We'd have to pour through Google, everything. Now it's like, okay, go to Perplexity, research this, run this through the custom GPT, and therefore I have reduced staff. My team, people would be amazed at what we can service, and I have me and I have an executive operations, which is kind of a glorified administrative assistant, executive assistant, and I teach her how to run all these AI agents, and we share the links with each other. Now I've got freelancers, but they'll do something in AI, and then that'll be sent to me, and I'll continue working with it. It has transformed every single process that we have and allows me to focus on the creative things, learning, and setting myself apart from the other people who are using AI as well.
Awesome. So I assume you are tech-savvy person, right? So that's why you can incorporate that one. But I mean, right now, there are so many tools and they are user-friendly. But still, what would be your advice to those who want to do something with AI in their daily life, but they haven't started yet because they think it's too complicated?
Yeah, great question. I am not a technical person. I'm technical enough to hack things together and to say, let me figure out the way around to make tools that are supposed to be doing this do something else. You have to just start by conversationally chatting with AI, ChatGPT. So everything. I will not do anything without asking ChatGPT for some feedback. I'll say, I'm thinking about this. What do you know? What do you have for me? And you start getting used to the, oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing. This solved me a whole bunch of time. Or you hit the roadblocks and say, okay, AI is not smart enough to do this. It's hallucinating. You just have to get comfortable with the tools, and then eventually you'll be able to hack the tools with all the new cool widgets and software solutions that are out there.
Brilliant. Love it. Thank you for sharing. Ed, our time is coming to the end, unfortunately, and I know you're very busy, so I really appreciate your time. I don't want to take more. But so how people can reach out to you if they need advice, support, startup founders, and people who learn more about how to build a DEX?
Sure. I'm more than happy to connect with anybody across my socials. You have to look up Ed Kang 99, and that's the reason I try and put out as much helpful content for free that everybody can use. Unfortunately, my time is limited for interactions. I get requests all the time. Do you have 15 minutes to talk? And I just don't. And therefore, you want to join a community such as startups.com, and there we're running cohorts, and we're just trying to give as much advice as possible and connect founders with that, and just understand that there has to be some type of value reciprocation. I'm trying to put out all the value in the world possible. But if you want my personal time, well, contact me. Never hurts to ask, but we have many ways to help you out without you having to pay retail price for advisory and give up points in your company and all that good stuff.
Amazing. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next one.
You bet. Happy to be here, and let's do it again.